Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. Well, today I am bringing back a video I tried once and never again, and that is a first page analysis of a book that I really enjoyed from the perspective of an aspiring author. And basically the point is to take a look at an existing published work and see what I, as an aspiring author, can learn from it. And for today's experiment, I have chosen one of my favorite books. I talk about it constantly on this channel, and that is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. I have talked about this book plenty of times in the past. It is a book that I really do feel like changed my life and has such an incredible opening paragraph. It's 2 sentences, but I do feel like both need to be taken together. And so I figured this is a really great book to put under the microscope and explore through the lens of a fellow author who hopes to one day be published herself. So before I get into the first page, I'm going to just read you the back copy just to give you an idea of what this book is about. My description is always that it is a book about nun assassins in a science fantasy setting with an almost exclusively female cast with strong prevailing themes of female friendship. But for the actual plot stuff, this is what the copy has to say. At the convent of Sweet Mercy, young girls are raised to be killers. In some few children, the old blood shows, gifting rare talents that can be honed to deadly or mystic effect. But even the mistresses of sword and shadow don't truly understand what they have purchased when Nona Gray is plucked from the gallows and brought to their halls. It takes 10 years to educate a Red Sister in the ways of blade and fist, but there is much more for Nona to learn than the arts of death. Among her class, she finds a new family and new enemies. Despite the isolation of the convent, Nona's secret and violent past finds her out, drawing with it the tangled politics of a crumbling empire. Beneath a dying sun, Nona Gray must master her inner demons, then loose them on those who stand in her way. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the first page in its entirety first, and then I will just get into a kind of line by line breakdown and kind of pick apart what I think works so well in this opening page. Without further ado, this is the first page of Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Now it is a prologue, and I will say first that I don't love a prologue. I'm not a big prologue girly, but having read the entire series, I can see what this prologue was for and what it was attempting to do. Okay, that's enough commentary. Prologue. It is important when killing a nun to ensure that you bring an army of sufficient size. For Sister Thorn of the Sweet Mercy Convent, Lanotassus brought 200 men. From the front of the convent, you can see both the northern ice and the southern, but the finer view is out across the plateau and over the narrow lands. On a clear day, the coast may be glimpsed, the Sea of Marne a suggestion in blue. At some point in an achingly long history, a people now lost to knowledge had built 1,024 pillars out on the plateau. Corinthian giants thicker than 1,000-year oak, taller than a long pine. A forest of stone without order or pattern, covering the level ground from flank to flank so that no spot upon it lay more than 20 yards from a pillar. Sister Thorn waited amid this forest, alone and seeking her center. Lano's men began to spread out between the columns. Thorn could neither see nor hear her foe approach, but she knew their disposition. She had watched earlier as they snaked up the west trail from Styx Valley, 3 and 4 abreast. Polarthy mercenaries from the ice margins, furs from the white bear and the snow wolf over their leathers, some with scraps of chainmail about them, ancient and dark or bright as new, depending on their luck. Many carried spears, some swords. 1 man in 5 carried a short bow of recurved horn. Tall men in the main, fair-haired, their beards short or plaited, the women with lines of blue across their cheeks and foreheads, like the rays of the cold sun. Here's a moment. So that's the entire first page. And what I love about this page beyond the first couple of lines is that it does a really good job of setting a scene, establishing the author's voice, and injecting tension right away into the moment. So to return to those first couple of lines that I feel are really, really punchy and effective, it is important when killing a nun to ensure that you bring an army of sufficient size. I really love that opening line, but I think it is most effective when paired with the second, which says, for Sister Thorn of the Sweet Mercy Mercy convent, Lanotassus brought 200 men. So right away, we're establishing that killing nuns is a thing in this world, but also that nuns can more than hold their own. And that kind of raises the question of what kind of world is this where nuns are effective fighters, effective combatants, where you need to bring 200 men for a single woman. It also puts into sharp perspective who the kind of person Sister Thorn might be. Someone who is obviously very efficient at what she does, very good, and to be feared. So if we're going into this blind, that's kind of what we're getting out of the first couple of sentences, although we already did kind of get that sense if we have read the summary on the back. But in either case, I again feel like those first two sentences are just really, really effective at establishing just how deadly and effective a fully trained nun of the Sweet Mercy convent can be. The second paragraph continues, from the front of the convent, you can see both the northern ice and the southern, but the finer view is out across the plateau over the narrow lands. On a clear day, the coast may be glimpsed, the Sea of Marne, a suggestion in blue. And this paragraph does two things in my mind. It first starts kind of establishing the setting. He talks about the northern and the southern ice, which again suggests that there is a great deal of ice on this planet, both at the southern pole and the northern pole. And if you can see both at the same time, you are either very, very high up or that they are actually much closer together than you would think. And that is something that is established later on throughout the book what the setting is. But I do think that is a first good tease of the kind of world that the planet is and what the challenges are. The other thing I think this paragraph does effectively is it starts to establish Mark Lawrence's authorial voice, particularly the last part of that second sentence, the Sea of Marne, a suggestion in blue. I love Mark Lawrence's writing style. It does feel very lyrical and poetic, and that is just one example, I feel like. Paragraph 3 continues on that. At some point in an achingly long history, a people now lost to knowledge had built 1,024 pillars out on the plateau. Corinthian giants thicker than a 1,000-year-old oak, taller than a long pine. An achingly long history, a people of people. Again, establishing more of the lore, a civilization now lost to time and memory, and again sets the stage for this scene that we are entering into. Finishing out with Sister Thorn waited amid this forest, alone and seeking her center. So now we understand that Sister Thorn is not going to be surprised by this ambush of 200 men. She is actually anticipating them and preparing to meet them in a setting that she is evidently familiar with. Why is Sister Thorn being hunted by this man? Why does she feel so confident that she can take them on her own? These are questions that I feel like these paragraphs are raising and are teasing and are pulling the reader along to find the answers. Finally, this last big paragraph. Lano's men began to spread out between the columns. Thorn could neither see nor hear her foe approach, but she knew their disposition. She had watched earlier as they snaked up the west trail from Styx Valley, 3 and 4 abreast. Polarthy mercenaries from the ice margins, furs of the white bear and the snow wolf over their leathers, with some scraps of chainmail about them. Ancient and dark, or bright and new, depending on their luck. Many carried spears, some swords. 1 man in 5 carried a short bow of recurved horn. Tall men in the main, fair-haired, their beards short or plaited, the women with lines of blue paint across their cheeks and foreheads like the rays of a cold sun. Again, this paragraph does both a lot of work to establish the kind of world the story is set in, as well as the scene that we're about to get, this confrontation we're about to get between this army and this woman who is observing all of this with apparent calm. And again, the references to the ice paints us the picture of a cold scenario setting, time of year even. Something about the way he talks about the ice margins, so people living close to the ice, wherever that may be. We know there's northern and southern ice, and that there are animals accustomed to living in those environments. The white bear and snow wolf that have been hunted for their leathers, ostensibly to protect against the cold. So again, we're just really getting a sense of what this setting is like. Something very icy, very cold, very harsh. We also get a sense of what kind of unit this army that is coming to hunt down this woman is. It says Polarthi mercenaries. We don't know what Polarthi are, but we do get the sense that this group of people are not a cohesive army as it stands. It talks about how their equipment is kind of patched together and piecemeal, and some have old stuff and some have new stuff depending on their luck. That kind of paints us the picture of a group of people who are being paid for this purpose, but might not feel very strongly about it themselves and might not function together as a really strong cohesive unit that might have had training together. This doesn't seem like that sort of group of people. And it also tells us that there are myriad different kinds of fighters. We have spears and swords and bows. So whoever this Lanotassus person is, he has really prepared for all kinds of scenarios for facing down Sister Thorn. And then we finish off with the last sentence. Here's a moment before it goes into some more stuff that you'll just have to read the book to pick up on. And that's the entire first page. And I feel like this page is strongest in those first two opening lines, but the rest of the paragraphs do a really effective job of evoking imagery and establishing Mark Lawrence's authorial voice of being really lyrical and kind of poetic and visually artistic in its own way. We learn so much about the setting just in a few short sentences. We learn that it is a very, very cold place with ice on both the southern and northern poles that are reaching towards each other and are much closer together than we on Earth are accustomed to. We know that there is a monastery or a nunnery that exists in this world that is training nuns who are very effective combatants to the point where armies are being formed to take down just one of them. And we have a character who has been deemed worthy of being hunted by an entire army. What her transgression was to earn this sort of animosity or hostility, we don't know. We do kind of get the sense that she is anticipating this battle and that she is not really afraid, or is at least confident enough to face them on her own. And yeah, we just get a little tease, a little taste of what this world is like and what the characters might be like and what the conflict might be like. So from an authorial perspective, I do love those opening two sentences. I don't love how much description is in the following paragraphs. I wish there was just a little bit more action and a little bit more tension, but I do think that these paragraphs establish enough of the world to keep a reader going. It certainly did for me. I was dying to know why a nun was being hunted by an army of 200 men. So while this isn't the kind of first page I would have written, I do think it is extremely effective, especially if you're someone who likes this kind of prose, which I very much do as a reader. So that is a pretty good summary of my thoughts on the first page of Red Sister. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this first page, especially on those first two lines. Do you think they're effective? Do you agree with Mark Lawrence's decision to follow up those really punchy first sentences with long paragraphs of description? Do you think there's a nice blend, or would you prefer something a little bit more action-packed? I'd love to know your thoughts. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe, or consider leaving a comment down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me some sort of red emoji for the Red Sister. In my next video, I will have another brainstorming writing vlog for you, where I am continuing the process of thinking really deeply about my new work in progress, about the setting that I am putting it in, and some of the gaps in the world building knowledge that I have already established, just in a way to get myself ready to finally start fleshing out the plot. I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.